I don't, so you say that you have to give young people hope. I don't want your hope. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear that I feel every day, etc. I know it by heart. Before I cry, I have to go on.
Good evening. Good evening. How wonderful it is to see so many of you in this room. Thank you all for joining us and for your interest in Studium Generale and this lecture. Welcome to this Studium Generale lecture. Studium Generale is a department of the university that organizes extracurricular lectures, debates, lecture series, film and talk evenings, cultural events on all kind of topics that might interest you. And our activities are for free, or almost all our activities are for free. And everyone can come to us just if you are interested in a topic. And my name is Jaap Jansen and I'm program maker at Studium Generale. Last week, Extinction Rebellion started with a blockade of the A12 in The Hague. I don't know if we have to applaud. It was at least... There was a lot of discussion about this kind of protest action. So, well, maybe we can have a little discussion about it. But anyway, why do some of us raise their voice and do others keep silent? Our guest lecturer of tonight, Lieven De Cauter, will reflect on climate action, but also relate this to our society and maybe to what's wrong in our societies. And Lieven De Cauter, and I'm very grateful that you are here, and thank you for coming to Maastricht. Thank you. He is a philosopher, an art historian, and he is also a writer based in Brussels. And but he's not only an academic, but he's also an activist, if I might say so. At least already in 1973 he protested against the dictator in Chile, Pinochet. He protested against racism in Belgium later on, and also he protested against the Iraq War. And he has written several books focusing on cultural philosophy, contemporary art, architecture also, and politics. And his latest book, Ending the Anthropocene, was part of a trilogy, and I guess that he's going to talk about it as well. The lecture will take 1 hour, more or less, and then we have half an hour for discussion, and we will end this evening at 9:30, more or less. So I hope you enjoy the lecture and you have an interesting and nice evening. Lieven, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be here in the beautiful city of Maastricht. It was a while ago. I like Maastricht a lot. So voila. And also very pleased, a little bit intimidated to see so many people. So voila. So I thought to give you 3 lectures for the price of 1. When Belgium were very generous. But I want to give you a bit of context also, because otherwise you are listening to somebody but you don't know who is talking. So I will, the first part, is very short, will be on why am I here, in a sense. So indeed, as Jaap was saying, I made a trilogy. I call it my Millennium Trilogy, which is, this is the 3rd part of it, and we will look into it. But first, maybe have a look at the first part, the captured civilization on the city in the age of fear. When I read in the year 1998, a small article on the wall that Europe was sponsoring in Ceuta and Melilla, I had a sort of shock, and this shock was it's also on the cover. A very nice series, Go No Go, by a photographer. The name escapes me always. I'll come to it. But anyhow, so you see the wall of Ceuta here. I have visited, and this is in fact for me the crumbling of my rather optimistic worldview into looking the 21st century in the eye and seeing an ugly century. In this book, I also introduced the term permanent catastrophe. That was a text of 2001. The book was 2004. Next was Entropic Empire, on the city of man in the age of disaster, where I looked from 9/11 to the Arab Spring. So there was also, in all my books, there's also, as you will see, also a bit of, there's dark pessimism. One of my slogans, the book ends also with the slogan, pessimism in theory, optimism in practice, and this double-ness, this yes-no, this dialectic at standstill, if you want, is part of me and part of my philosophy. This book, Ending the Anthropocene, Essays on Activism in the Age of Collapse, we will look into a little bit more. It starts with the spleen of the Anthropocene. In fact, before I heard about eco-grief or eco-anger or eco-anxiety or eco-depression, all these words, I wrote a text on what I then called the political melancholy of our age. And that's the starting point, in a sense, of the book. Then there is a text on End of the Anthropocene. We will look, that will be the second part of the lecture, some basics on the Anthropocene, just to be on the same page, that we know what we're talking about. And then the third part will be the real part, if you want, on activism in the age of climate crisis. So the second part was optimistic. So I like this dialectic on the commons. The commons as, this discovery for me and for many people. It's a whole story since 1500. Moore's book was written against the enclosures of the commons. You could say that the commons have been erased so much that even Hans Achterhuis, whom I respect a lot, was making a big book on utopia without mentioning the word commons. So the erasure of the commons was complete, and with many movements, with in fact the digital commons like Wikipedia, but also the resurgence of urban commons, the commons movement was suddenly back, and also with crises in Greece and Spain, sharing kitchens, growing vegetables, all sorts of activities. I cannot go into this. So it's at the same time a history of 500 years, and at the same time it happened or was rediscovered yesterday, and it will be discovered again and again. Then the third part is one of my fascinations. Heterotopia is a concept of Foucault that comes back in almost in many books, not only in this trilogy, in different angles. And here I look to this place of otherness, that's the literal translation of heterotopia, from the angle of the Anthropocene, with the refugee, one of the figures, maybe the figure of the Anthropocene, the climate refugee, but the refugee in general also, how heterotopias can be alternative places where the guest becomes host. And I look at some practices like the living room of Daar, who was that was to be seen in Van Abbe Museum, and initiatives like Cinema Maximilian, that was showing cinema in the refugee camp in Brussels in 2015, and then became a sort of guest house producing film for and with newcomers, as they call them. Before, they were often called illegal migrants or people without paper. So heterotopia, these other places can mean a lot in this world, and that brings us to the real question, namely activism in the age of climate change. I cannot go in, this is the longest part of my book, but I just point to the climate strikers, the first text, and to Extinction Rebellion. For me it's there, for you it's there. So I don't know, I forgot, you can point like this? No, you cannot point like this. You cannot point like this. Voila. So there was a pointer, but anyhow. So the first text is explaining the political meaning of the climate strikers, Greta Thunberg, Anna de Wever, and all the others. And the last text is referring to Extinction Rebellion, and that will bring us, but I will not go into this because we don't have time for this. It's just a sort of first round. You see Extinction Rebellion is in red, so that we will come back on. Last part, I will not go into it. It is the difference between biopolitics and zoopolitics. It's technical, but also very useful. The bringing in of bare life into society is called biopolitics, the care for bare life, but the reduction of people to bare life, like we do with the people we push back in the Mediterranean, is the reduction to bare life, to just your bones, and often it turns to thanatopolitics, politics of death. That is very quickly and then I link it to the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. So a whole chapter, a book in itself, if you want. So you could say it's also 5 books in one. That's how I work. I try to make mosaics of the time. Et voilà. We go now, so we have seen the book. You have an impression of what is my Millennium Trilogy, of where I speak, what concepts I use, and now we will look into the Anthropocene. Because I know that some people have not heard about it, other people know everything about it, so just a plain level to play on, and that everybody is on the same map or the same page. So this will go very quickly. This is you should, if you have a good memory, Google this movie on Welcome to the Anthropocene, because it's a very telling movie. So the Anthropocene is of course a geological term invented around 2000s. Around 2016, they work slow in geology. They said, okay, we will accept the term, but we don't know when it started. And this, of course, is then the question: when does it start? What is the golden spike? And there were 4 candidates. And of course, it would be fun to have even an hour to discuss these 4 golden spikes, because they're all very, very interesting to discuss. But it will be the nuclear bomb. Sorry to spoil this. If you didn't know, it will be the Trinity test. For those who have seen Oppenheimer, it will ring a bell. The Trinity test, why? Because you can see it in geological terms, A, but B, because of the Great Acceleration. The Great Acceleration, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is a concept you should never forget. Who knows it? You see? So I'm grateful that I can tell you something that you should know, but you don't. For some reason that I cannot explain, but it's not known. The Great Acceleration is the key to understanding our world, in my opinion. So the Great Acceleration is population, real GDP, foreign investment, urban population, primary energy use, fertilizer, yeah, it's a bit far for you maybe, large dams, water use, paper production, transportation, telecommunication, and international tourism. So the parameters of our modern world, let's say, they go steep up, the Great Acceleration. But the Great Acceleration is at the same time, of course, a catastrophe, because the other parameters go also up. Carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and you can go to terrestrial biosphere degradation, surface temperature, ocean acidification, and there is stratospheric ozone. But in fact, there you see the catastrophe in front of you. Yeah. We are emitting more and more, and everything has to grow, but we have a footprint that is destroying the web of life. Because, of course, climate change is one problem, but the next one is the 6th mass extinction. So this growth is so dangerous that it can. Well, this is maybe a bit too much, but this is. Now this is where the planet could end. So that is called hothouse Earth. So you can stabilize the Earth, but we can also go there. And with 6 and more degrees, higher life forms. So if you Google hothouse Earth, you will find it. So it's we are. If you think it is scary, well, it is much more scary. Yeah. So that is what I try to tell you, because if you don't know it, you cannot discuss climate activism. You don't know what you're talking about. Why the hell is Greta Thunberg so mad? Is she just autistic or what? But maybe she's autistic, but she's also right. You see, she's damn right. You see, so it's that what we have to know. Voilà. Fine. So, but I have to go quick. So, Capitalocene. So this is Capitalocene is a term against the Anthropocene. Anthropos is like the male who is ruling the world. So and as if all the people are responsible. So no, it's Capitalocene. Enfin, there's a whole discussion. I cannot go into this. This is not so important for tonight. And also the imagery. But here, the Stygius Demos says that it is doing as if everybody is responsible, but it's only a part that is responsible. So in fact, the term Anthropocene is an ideological term, according to them. I have, this Jason Moore invented the term Capitalocene, and Isabelle Stengers, a Belgian science philosopher, took it over. She says Anthropocene is the name for history as his story, which at the end of the line, which I quite like. It's a sort of ecofeminist critique. But anyhow, so fascinating, but we have no time for this. This is the small letters, let's say. I just want to give you the essentials. I'm not fully agreeing with this. I think Anthropocene is an interesting term, and the fact that you have to discuss it makes it worthwhile for me. And there's also, this is a whole list of reasons why it is not the Capitalocene. For instance, colonization is much older than capitalism, or the technological vector, or agri-logistics, etc., etc. So there's many reasons. I think Capitalocene will not do either. But anyhow, in any case, given the independence in the web of life, we are facing chain reactions, feedback loops, and tipping points. That's, of course, what is the really scary point of today, the tipping points. Things that click, 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 and you cannot stop it anymore. Like, for instance, I was in Switzerland, I saw the Rhone glacier, we were talking about it, it's shrinking, but somebody said what you see is not the heat of today, what you see is the heat of the 90s. Well, that is scary. So wait till you see the heat of today. You see, that is climate change. So it is going faster and faster and faster because we keep emitting more. You see? So the intrusion of Gaia, as Isabelle Stengers and Latour call it. So suddenly Gaia, this web of life, this living organism is hitting back, is entering the scene. We thought it was a backdrop, it's entering the scene. It's becoming an actor. Climate change, don't forget it, is not the only one. Loss of biodiversity is a big one. Scarcity of water, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, the plastic soup has nothing to do with climate change, for instance. So there's many problems. Even that is not a complete list of the catastrophes that we have unchained. For instance, sixth mass extinction. Who knows about the sixth mass extinction? Just to know. That's better. Okay, very good. Thank you. we're getting there. So every creature on the planet should know, every human creature at least, should know about this sixth mass extinction that we are accelerating day by day. Insects of my youth are now almost extinct. So was the kruispin, the garden spider, which was one of my favorite animals as a child. I was a bit of a Dr. Frankenstein, but anyhow, so it was poetry. The Holocene extinction, if you can read that, the Holocene extinction, otherwise referred to, I can't read that, as the sixth extinction or Anthropocene extinction is a current event and one of the most significant extinction events in the history of the Earth. So it's not a detail, etc., etc. Blah blah. We have no time for this. Yeah, in fact, it's just a catastrophe. So I mean, for instance, just as of 2019, in fact, the insects dying on us is very, very recent, since 2000. It's not like, yeah, sometime happened a long time ago. No, no, it's happening now. It's your life. In fact, it's even the third part almost of my life, you see. So it's very recent. As of last phrase, as of 2019, 40% of insect species are in decline and a third are endangered. So it's very acute, because without insects, all the birds living off insects are gone too. It's a web of life. So if you start to pull the tissue goes. So what we are doing, I mean, this is even not in my PowerPoint. I read this summer that the Amazon forest is emitting now more CO2 than it takes up. Wow. Bad. Very bad. It's not that bad. Maybe it is bad. So collapsology, yes, that's the science of collapse. So maybe we have to anticipate collapse and work, etc. This is all very old. We know, in fact, since, well, wait, just go back here for a while. These are famous statistics, of course. This is the famous graph of business as usual of 72. The behavior of the world system under the business as usual model is that of overshoot and collapse. 72, limits to growth. So not that we were not told. Yeah. So that's, this is an awful graph, but I have no time. It's just essentials. So I try to, that we know that we are of course the frog, slowly heating, we don't jump out, etc., etc., collapse. This I think is maybe interesting. A scheme of Latour that is very, very interesting. So you have the local, you have the global, and this is the front of modernity. He says, and this is interesting to understand the contemporary situation, he says what we have now is a new attractor, and he calls it Orsol, difficult to translate. Rokus Hofstede, with all my compliments, has translated in Dutch as bodemloos. No. I don't know how it is translated in English, but I would translate it as extraterrestrial, as opposed to terrestrial. Yeah? Because, I mean, and that is what happens. People decide not to live on this planet anymore. Migrants build walls. Climate change is a hoax invented by leftists who want to install a climate dictatorship. I wish it was true. So, I mean, I would be happy to live in a world where climate change does not exist. It's just a hoax by some fanatics who want to install a dictatorship. Wow. I wish I could believe it. You see, so some people have left the planet in their heads. Conspiracy theories. Trumpists. So this is, he wrote this book as a response to Trump, and I think it's very interesting. There's so much you can explain with this fourth attractor. And of course, the real attractor should be the terrestrial. Yeah? That is the attractor where I hope more and more people are standing for. And this is the reason that climate activism maybe can now make a difference. I mean, I must say the A12 occupation, that's for just later, makes me a little bit optimistic for a minute or two. So voila, that's blah, blah, blah. A postscript, no time. You have to read the book. Of course, Greta Thunberg, I would love to watch her and cry because this is a fantastic speech she gave in Davos, but no time. Well, just Guardian, Davos, Greta Thunberg, it's fantastic. I cry every time. So she says, I don't, so you say that you have to give young people hope. I don't want your hope. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear that I feel every day, etc. I know it by heart. Before I cry, I have to go on. Conclusions. We don't know yet when the Anthropocene has begun, but we might be living its end. We should end the Anthropocene before it ends us. Et voilà. now finally the largest lecture starts. Whew! So welcome, hello Maastricht, now the lecture starts. We have a basic to start on. So now we can relax and go slow. So, this is not a crisis. Because it's too big for a crisis. It is at least not a passing crisis, because the crisis, think of puberty. That's a crisis. It's bad, or a depression. It's a crisis, but you know it will go over. The word crisis I have problems with, because we do as if it's a crisis. We will one day, no. This crisis will last for centuries, if not millennia. It's not like you cannot turn off the heating. No, it doesn't work like this. Although little things can make a difference. That's another thing. Like you can see in statistics that I will show you the Corona crisis. But anyhow, it is not a crisis, and at least not a passing crisis, and then back to normal. No, it is not a new normal either. It is the end of normality. In fact, it's a book that I'm just reading, but I'm not so sure if you can follow this. We have settled in a new era with everything transformed. Somebody called it, the mayor or governor of California, a new normal. The truth is actually much scarier. Yeah, that's fine. I thought this page was quite something. We are leaving the climate system that has raised us, the Holocene. And that is where I think Anthropocene makes sense. The Holocene was a stable climate. 12,000 years ago, started a climate that made agriculture and our slow-moving civilization possible. Yeah, we have fucked up that system. So that's why the agricultural revolution cannot be the beginning of the Anthropocene, because you would blot out the Holocene. So you would, in fact, sort of go against the logic of your own distinction between Holocene and Anthropocene. But anyhow, that's technical. Voila. So that's the book. David Wallace, very well written. Reads like a sort of novel, a bit of a horror story, I must say. But Story of the Future, very, very good book. So it is not a crisis. It is in fact 3 or 4 crises. And I say this because today I was reading a text by a good friend of mine, René Gabriels, who is, I call him now het licht van Maastricht. The light of Maastricht, of the light of Maastricht, I don't know. But it has to rhyme. But he sees, in fact, 3 crises and gives in his text that I loved, the geometry of crises. He made so the socio-economic crisis, and then he looked into the Gilets jaunes. The ecological crisis, he looked into Extinction Rebellion, even if the text is older than today, and the political crisis, DM25, the movement of Varoufakis. Because it's also, of course, as you can see with Trumpism in the scheme of Latour, it's also a crisis of democracy. So it is the conundrum of today that if you want to do something about the climate crisis, you have to tackle the other crises as well. Very difficult. So for me, the ecological crisis is a permanent catastrophe. That's how I called it. And of course, it is everywhere. You cannot escape it anymore. That is maybe the good thing, if there is a good thing about it, that you have to be totally blind or shut yourself off, as many people do. Because it is there all the time. Morocco, Libya, Greece. I mean, it's the whole summer was like one season, and it's increasing. You can feel it over the years, and not only feel it, you can see it. It's statistically increasing, and even earthquakes are part of this. So you have the geophysical events, meteorological events, hydrological events, and climatological events. They're all up, and in fact, it stops in 2016. Where I think the steep curve, in fact, really starts, because that's 7 years ago. So that is where the permanent catastrophe becomes really visible tangible. Yeah, you can feel it, you can sense it, you can. In fact, it's almost bodily. No, in fact, even in Belgium, the Vesder, in Germany, so it's getting closer also, etc., etc. Hyperobjects, I think I will skip. Although I love the book, but it's unreadable. It's very difficult, so it's only for the bollebolzen, the quick ones. But it reads like I call it theory jockeying. Heidegger and Frankenstein and everything together. No, and a bit of quantum mechanics, and I can do this scratching. But it is so it's so interesting. I will even work. Even if my students will maybe hate me, but maybe if I read a few pages that they feel the rhythm, they will like it. But it is very clear in structure. Climate change is sticking to me. I eat red meat, it's there. I speak about the weather. Until very recently, the weather was like. You could talk to anybody about the weather. Now you talk about the weather. Before you know it, you have a... Yeah, I had it. Somebody said, yeah, but the summer of 76 was also hot. Well, bye-bye. You see, I mean, so you cannot talk about the weather. Whatever you do, I go to visit my friend in Spain. How do I go there? You don't want to know. I don't want to know either. You see? So everything you do, this viscosity. It's there. It sticks to you. It is. It's non-local. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. Small scale, big scale. It is temporal undulation. It is as we have seen already. It is yesterday, but it's also the 90s. I mean, the glacier. I was looking at the glacier of the 90s. You see. Oh, no, I'm looking at the glacier. No. You're looking at the glacier of the 90s. Phasing, we never see, it's like the moon. You see only phases of the moon. You see it appears and disappears. And interobjectivity, it's a constellation of so many objects that I can't. So that is what Timothy Morton in his theory jockeying style calls hyperobjects. Very interesting, the end of the world. So the world is something that a subject can see. Nope. We're in it, we're confused. And hypocrisies, I mean, whatever I do, I'm always in the wrong towards the hyperobject. So I think an interesting book, not very uplifting and not very activist, but still for a philosopher or a philosophical mind quite interesting. Second thesis. Our society has failed to take sufficient action. That is, I hope, clear by now. Not only has our society not taken a sufficient action, we are still emitting, and that is really the most depressing thing. In fact, this is, I think, something. I think it's Andreas Malm who reminded me. It is, in fact, since '96, the first climate summit, that we really have started emitting. You will see it in a minute. Voila. I should have done maybe 96. I just marked because it's an interactive map on the, and you see 2000. So you see, the only hope is the little dent, the little valley in the Corona crisis. So halting society is the best we can do. So in the introduction of my book, I say maybe collapse is our only hope, or at least the only hope for the biosphere. And this proves it a little bit. But so we are, if you see that as a volume, we are emitting more than almost any period before, since we are deciding to do something about it. It's not so good, eh? So, we are stuck, we are totally stuck in the logic of growth, and it makes us hit the planetary boundaries, and hitting it. It's not like we're crossing a boundary that we shouldn't cross. No, we are hitting our wall, our head against the wall. That's what's happening. Eh? We're hitting. It's very hard. Eh? The wildfires, the droughts, Libya. They have to invent new words. Eh? The water tsunami. It's never seen in world history, and not in that region at least. You see, so the records are crossed every time. For instance, in Belgium, soporific Belgium, first heat wave in September. Yeah, of course, it's not the end of the world, but I mean, it's Belgium, yeah, and it's September. You see, voila. So less is more. Another book. It's also translated in Dutch for those who. It's a terrific read. I mean, the history of the last 500 years explained in such a clear way, and he proves that as long as we are addicted to growth, we are killing ourselves and everything with us. Why? Because the green energy that we produce is in fact just enough to keep more or less up with the growth logic. So we need still more petrol and fossil fuels, and the green. Thank you for the green energy. We will grow a bit more. You see, and he also proved that we don't need growth to be welfare and growth from a certain level. He shows that with many statistics and many empirical examples is not necessary for well-being. Fantastic book. This is the most painful thesis for me, thesis number 4. The climate movement has failed so far. Movement was suddenly French. Yeah, I'm from Belgium, you have to forgive me. Yes, and I'm also dyslexic, so you have to really forgive me. But it is true. Mistakes or not. It has not been able to force real system change. One of the slogans of the age is, of course, system change, not climate change. But so far, let's say 50 years of climate movement, because the hippies were there already in the 60s. It's very old. Silent Spring is written in 63, Rachel Carson. And so the hippies were very much aware this sort of going back to growing plants and smoke a few plants is a logic of short change and back to nature, and of course it's all romantic, but it's also true, and against consumption, consumerism, and the throwaway society, and planned obsolescence, and repairing, the idea of repair, open source, etc., etc. I like the hippies. But anyhow, they had a point, but we did not, after 50 years, we did not one iota move in the good direction, in a sense, as we just have seen with the statistics that we emit more and much more, not less. We even don't stabilize it yet. So, of course, my great idol of the moment, great but very small, beside her Anuna de Wever and Kira Gantois, but I saw her live in Brussels. She is really very small, but she is one of the greatest living persons. So she has a book, Nobody is Too Small to Make a Difference. I have to buy it. I don't have it. I saw it, and when you see a book that you really want, you have to buy it at once, because later. Anyhow, I have to buy it. So, thesis 5. Maybe radicalization is our only hope. So, beyond, with all the respect, because I have been marching like many of you, I may hope, climate marches, I mean, every year, twice a year, Fridays of the Future, climate strikes, whatever. I am ambassador for the grandparents for the climate. Grootouders van het klimaat, who were a response to the criticism on the klimaatspijbelaars, on the climate strikers. So all very well, but they don't care. They don't care. Whatever we do, yeah, go back to your houses. You're just a minority. Yeah, white folks, middle class. So it doesn't work. So. Maybe lawsuits and large-scale occupations could make a difference and be a game changer. And maybe, and this is my hope, which is very recent, maybe we come very close to the present, We have first the climate case in Holland, in the Netherlands. Oh, the Netherlands. Yeah, for us it's Holland. Sorry, but this will not be forever. But so then we imitated that, as we often do. We had the climate case. They got the judge thought they were right, but nothing happened. That is what the text says. So they now, in fact, I think yesterday, they are now in appeal, saying, okay, Mr. Judge, thank you for saying that we were right, but now you have to force the government to do something. That is the appeal. So let's hope. But really, what is exciting me, and I hope many of you, is Extinction Rebellion. Now, for a long time, they were like big in the UK. They started in the UK in 2018, if I'm not wrong, with the three demands: tell the truth, act now, and decide together. Maybe we will detail that a little bit. We are facing an unprecedented global emergency. Life on Earth is in crisis. Scientists agree we have entered a period of abrupt climate breakdown, and we are in the midst of a mass extinction of our own making. A very good summary of the truth of what the situation is. Act now. We are unprepared for the danger our future holds. We face floods, wildfires, extreme weather, crop failure, mass displacement, and the breakdown of society. The time for denial is over. It is time to act. Conventional approaches of voting, lobbying, petitions, and protest have failed. So they make the same analysis, because powerful political and economic interests prevent change. Our strategy is therefore one of non-violent, disruptive civil disobedience, a rebellion. Yeah. So, extinction, rebellion against the extinction that we cause, but also against our own extinction, which is unfortunately not any longer impossible, whatever people may tell you. I think Hothouse Earth was one of the things pointing in that direction. And then decide together, if we are to have any hope of coping with the emergency, we have to move beyond the politics that have so far failed, so far held us back, and into listening, dialogue, and towards unity and action. Extinction Rebellion does not want to seize power. We want the power to be in the hands of the people. We need to decide together. That's why our third demand is for a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological justice. And in fact, this sounded to me in the beginning also a bit utopian, but the Gilets jaunes, of all people, in fact, have proved in France that they can make 150 people who were studying with, of course, experts, and they made 46 proposals that, in fact, were considered unanimously almost as very, very sensible. The only thing is that Macron did not apply them. Too bad. But it can work. Voila, this is the Royal Rebellion on the Royal Palace in Brussels, with this fantastic logo, this hourglass. It's a bit anarchistic, a bit naughty, but also very symbolic. The hourglass, the zandloper, very, very nice. Here you see them occupying the royal place, Koningsplein, and here you see them be wiped out. In fact, I have details. The police was very, very heavy on them, really like inhuman treatment. There were trials on this. So this criminalization, that's a whole chapter in itself. The criminalization of activism, enfin, it could be part of discussion maybe, but En de Galande, Soulèvement de la Terre in France are taken on very, very heavily by the police and by justice. Enfin, also the klimaatklevers, those who glue themselves to painting, were some of them were like, I mean, punished for 6 months. I mean, like, what did he do? Well, he used a bit of glue. And yes, there was a scratch in the frame. I mean, come on, 6 months. And what was his intention? Well, to appeal that we have to wake up. But the real exciting thing of tonight is, of course, the A12 this fantastic feat, this maybe major breakthrough for the all the continental branches. I think we can easily say that. I think that this is the most successful action of Extinction Rebellion outside the UK so far. So congratulations, the Netherlands. And it's colorful. It's warm. It's the heat wave. So here you see that it is already the 9th day that they do this, and the 10th. Very good, very good. So it was, of course, I'm always behind with the newspapers. Of course, I should have been clever and checked the news of today. It's true. 10 days, and suddenly, yeah, I hope that the whole of Holland, this is for the rhyme, alliteration, the whole of Holland, wakes up and says, yes, they are right. 37 billion for the 46 in the meantime. Yes, you have to update me. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I read that too. It's true. So it will be, in fact, 100 million, a billion in the end. So that's already behind. But it's a flag. So people say, "Hey, but this is too much, folks. This is irrational. We are killing our environment, and then we subsidize the killers of our environment. This is crazy." This, of course, has been said a long time, but suddenly it is a case. No? But, and this is the difficulty, and that I want to discuss with you. Here it says 70% of the Dutch are behind the fact that it is unacceptable that you have these large amounts, whatever, it might be even more, this geldstroom, this stream of money towards this pollution and this polluting firms and multinationals, but only 14% is supporting the action. And that is the whole conundrum, and this will be, of course, it will play out in the future. Maybe some of you have an opinion on that. This is the problem. And that is why in my interview in Observant, I said maybe you have to go even more precise and sabotage or block the firms itself, and not block the traffic for the commuters from and to The Hague, because it's not so pleasant. No? So that's a difficult discussion. So maybe sabotaging the systems that destroy the ecosystem is a last option. So really precise, not like, for instance, Extinction Rebellion. It's in the book that I will quote in a minute. Extinction Rebellion blocked the tubes, the underground in London at some point. And Andreas Malm, who's a quite angry guy, he rips it to pieces. He said, how stupid can you be? Public transport is part of the solution, and the people who use public transport are certainly not your enemies. Yeah? So, and this is, of course, A12, the A12 is maybe different, but it's incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to find the right target. But anyhow, maybe blocking or sabotaging the system that destroys our is the last option. Time to blow up a pipeline, question mark. Yeah, and of course you have heard about the film. Maybe some of you have seen it. It is quite strange. It's maybe not the ultimate masterpiece, but it's quite unique that a theoretical book with the same title is translated into a fiction, a sort of fiction narrative. So there's nothing of fiction in Andreas Malm's book. This is the book. I just read it. It's quite fascinating. But the film tries to narrate. I'm not so sure, but that's maybe something to discuss with my students in the writing class of the cinema school, the film school, to see how this translation could have been more precise. For instance, if you think of the Overstory of Richard Powers, I think that's much more precise. But that's a big book. So film has to fictionalize it. But then that's another discussion. So let's move on. Just a little teaser of the content of this book, Learning from Past Struggles. He shows that in fact the non-violent movements were much less non-violent, or much less non-violent than claimed. For instance, the headquarters of Martin Luther King were defended by armed people. And Gandhi had a history of quite a bit of violence before. So he makes a sort of case that this is a bit of propaganda, this totally pacifist thing. Then breaking the spell is saying, okay, what will we do if nothing works? And there he moves towards blowing up a pipeline. And then the chapter that I almost like the most brings us back to the beginning of my lecture, Fight in Despair, where he says that the position of some people saying, hey, it's too late, folks, is not a position. Yeah? So he takes Jonathan Franzen and Royce Scranton, Jonathan Franzen, a very famous writer, as an example of an untenable, despicable, unacceptable position. You cannot say, let's just live it out. Because everything we don't do is making it worse. So it's not a neutral position. You are complicit of in fact, an active crime, in a sense. So very, very nice, very grabbing chapter. I really enjoyed the book. The first chapter is a bit heavy. It's a bit historical. Anyhow, 7. One thing is sure. Doing nothing is not an option. Et voilà.
Thank you so much for this. I'm flabbergasted for this thought-provoking lecture. I see already, I have a question too, but maybe there are a lot of questions in the audience, so we will start with the audience, and then we will see.
Thank you very much for your introduction. I have a question for you. Could you say something about the way of the law? That some people think that lawsuits, like the one they are doing now in California, is the way forward. And I have a question for the students here, because we had a very vibrant student movement before the pandemic. They were trendsetters. They raised quite easily 3,000 people on marches, but it seemed to have declined, while in the rest of the Netherlands there has been an occupation in Utrecht, in Eindhoven, in Rotterdam, where the students said, hey, university, what are your ties with the fossil industry? And I'm sure there are ties with this university with the fossil industry. So get your ass moving.
Does anyone want to respond to that? One of the students, maybe? No. Well, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I have a question myself. To end with your last slide, Bas van der Hurk, the new vice president of the IPCC, said, "Climate does not benefit from warnings and doom scenarios, but needs solutions." So the obvious question is, do you have maybe a slight direction of the solution?
Stop emitting.
But how?
But it's no. But I mean, the idea that there is solutions is we do that for 50 years now. So I have the totally opposite position of this. This
Bas van der Hurk, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Opposite, but I mean, people still don't know. We underestimate the power of climate denialism or climate negationism. I think, maybe a little bit of a joke, but still, I think climate negationism should be treated like Holocaust negationism. Just make it a crime. Yeah, because it is, I think, criminal. No, I really believe it. Enfin, it's not that I want to criminalize people, but I mean, it is crazy and it is so deep. Like the guy who last summer said, yes, but the summer of 76 was also hot. I mean, that is saying I'm a climate denialist, no? I mean, so it is still there. Now it is underground, but I mean, Vlaams Belang, Thierry Baudet, Bart de Wever, Theo Franken, enfin, you can name the Dutch version of that. They are all climate quietists, eco-modernists, eco-realists, enfin, in short, climate denialists, you see? So it's very strong. So and even just the larger population, because of the slowness that the media took up, I mean, even the Standard, quite a good newspaper, it's only maybe 3 to 5 years that they really are on it. Before I was saying, hey folks, come on, you're looking at the wrong side here. They were busy on growth and in fact, they still have it a bit. Yeah, because for instance, you read the economy pages, it's all about growth. Yeah, no, sorry folks. You see, so there is a debate. So I don't believe that warning is done. It's not. It's never done, because it's inconceivable also. And B, I think saying there is solutions is not facing the truth. The truth is that we are emitting more.
Yeah.
And
maybe not
as long as we grow.
Yeah. But what has to happen then?
A climate emergency. You say we have a panel, like with the corona pandemic. We have a panel of politicians, citizens, and experts, and they say that you can do, and this is what you have to do. And of course, you have to say, how do we stop emitting tomorrow? From now on, I mean, very simple, a range of many things. Like, very simple, every Sunday, carless Sunday, 100 kilometers an hour on every motorway. You will not believe how much impact this will have. You immediately see, I mean, if we would do these two things, emissions would drop considerably.
But these are minor things.
No, not. I mean, I'm not a specialist, but the Corona crisis, you have seen it on my slide, yeah. Yeah. The Corona crisis proves. Yeah. That's not so far.
Yeah, but that was a kind of systemic collapse.
But we have to. I mean, this is the point of Extinction Rebellion. We have to make a climate emergency. We are in a collapse. You see, we are in a collapse. The only thing is that we don't want to know it. But we are in a collapse. We are making the system. Voila, here you have it. You see, there you see the dint. So if that's the only good news in a sense, from view from the seen from the biosphere, yeah, that was good news.
Yeah, but can it only work when the system
stop growth? I mean, yeah, stop.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, well, the politicians have to say, capitalism, fuck off. Yeah.
But they are not going to do that.
No, but they will. They did it. In the sense, the welfare state was not invented by capitalism. Yeah? It was the miners who invented mutuality, health insurance, unemployment insurance, pension, and then suddenly, after the war, Roosevelt and the state here took it over. It's in fact still today that the trade union in Belgium pays your unemployment fee. We have a very slow memory, so you can correct capitalism heavily. You can. It's just that neoliberalism has entered into the veins of politics. So politicians believe that you have to privatize everything, believe that you have to play into the hands of multinationals, believe that you have to make every country a tax paradise so that the multinationals can say, I'm no, sorry, it is cheaper there. Of course, this is the race to the bottom. So we need politics. But politics, not politics that is neoliberal and just serving capital.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I will go around now to the others.
I mean, I perceive like the actual difficulty that we're talking about is how to actually do a paradigm shift throughout the entire society, because like here there are like aware people, and I think no one here disagrees on the goal of actually reducing emissions radically. Perhaps on the details of that, but I feel like in general society the idea or like the urgency still isn't clear, and contradictory to what I just said. I mean, we looked at the statistic of 70% agreeing that giving tax money to fossil fuel companies is a stupid idea, and still only 14%.
14% agrees with action. 14.
14,
not 14.
Only 14% are agreeing with the way that, of blocking, for example, highways. And I mean, perhaps I'm almost wondering whether it would make sense to have a brainstorming here about the most effective ways of doing a paradigm shift. Because like I feel like that's what everyone's wondering who's aware of the issue. Like, how do we actually, win majorities that are large enough to change the system?
Yeah, but for me, the Corona crisis is, in fact, the Corona crisis was a decision.
Yeah,
it was a decision. You could have done nothing. Yeah, no. But I mean, so they decided to do something, and they decided to do incredible measures. Freedom was not important for a moment. First came the mortalities, figures from, and the high intensive care. I mean, so you take statistics, you say, okay, we agree that this will be the norm. Well, I mean, you can just do the same for the climate. You say this is the norm, and everything goes, and we will subsidize, and we will invent strategies, and we will help each other and the world. I mean, I lived the day that all the airplanes on planet Earth were grounded. I saw it with my own eyes on television. But I mean, if you would have said before Corona, I wouldn't have believed you. But yes, but I mean, but you can't. But it is an external force. I mean, the Corona crisis was peanuts in comparison to what we are living and what we will live. But I mean, peanuts is even. It's not even peanuts. You see.
Yeah, I mean, what I was wondering. I mean, you talked about the aspect of unions and their role in capitalism to actually improve stuff from misery. However, like, should perhaps Extinction Rebellion and other climate movements act sort of like unions, perhaps as funders of giant solar farms, giant wind farms, funders of, I don't know, climate adaptation projects, whatever?
Yeah, but I do that. In fact, I don't think that there is a one thing. I mean, you have like Greenpeace is sitting around the table with banks to divest in fossil oil. I mean, so there's many things that you can do. But when all is said and done, as long as we are in the logic of growth, Jason Hickel has convinced me, we can build the world full of solar energy and solar panels and wind energy. We will just cap the growth we need. So we will keep, in fact, we will keep growing because the growth, like China, 8% until recently, that is, you know that the world economy has to double in 17 years? Double. That is growth. Because we forget, we think that growth is, well, babies grow, and it's natural. No. Eternal growth is, so 17 and a half or something, or maybe 20. I mean, but in your lifetime, the economy will be tripled. Tripled. This is crazy in a finite system. It will not work.
Wait for the microphone.
you were telling that the disaster will come before that time, so that's the solution.
Well, I mean that is, you know, but that's in the end it's not a solution. I mean I mean it's more closer to a final solution. Yeah, no, I mean of course, the collapse will be collapse. It will not be funny. So I mean, think now in Libya, the collapse is not funny. That's collapse. Libya was already collapsed, and now it's collapsed in the collapse. So civil war, and on top of that, water tsunamis. Sorry.
I think one of the reasons Extinction Rebellion is growing so fast is because of their non-violent actions. And you introduced the subject of maybe destroying systems. I've seen the movie How to Blow a Pipeline. I felt like, oh my God. And then I went home, don't really see myself blowing up a pipeline. So how do you see if Extinction Rebellion activists start doing these measures in a violent way? What do you think it will do for the movement?
Yeah, it's a big question. I really, I should maybe learn Andreas Malm's argument by heart, but Extinction Rebellion did not grow quickly. I mean, it started in 2018, so we are 5 years later, and it's the first action on the continent that is really big. 5 years. We don't have. We were already 50 years, so time is really against us. So it should start yesterday. Yeah. So the slowness. I have all respect and sympathy, and I'm jealous of the T-shirt you have. Yeah, if you have one, give me one. So yeah. So I really, all my respect, and I'm quite close to them. I write about them, and I know people in it, and I have not been into the action so far, but that will come, no doubt. But I'm afraid it will be too little, too late. Yeah, but I hope not. I mean, if this week I was ever hopeful, it's these 10 days that I think, wow, maybe something is moving. Yeah, and if the Netherlands move, this is very important for Europe, Belgium, Germany, and the Gelande. And the Gelande has now been very much criminalized. Soulèvement de la Terre, as I said, in France has been criminalized. So if just imagine that also the public opinion is moving, saying, hey, these guys are really right, so come on. So yes, maybe it will work. I hope it will work. I'm not so sure. So maybe precision. I mean, for instance, the Gilets jaunes were not so friendly. Yeah, they just blocked everything they could, and they went every Sunday to the Champs-Élysées and destroyed everything they could. They were taken very seriously. Very seriously. So the friendliness is not only the most efficient.
I have here another question.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
So in our system, the growth is deeply rooted. So we now have like a monetary system which is not dependent on growth, and our labor market is dependent on growth in our current system. So if you say you need a collapse of the system to prevent the collapse of the earth, then that would be like an immediate effect on a lot of people. So as you say, Corona crisis, all the planes have been grounded. That had an immediate effect on a lot of people. Saying, how do you think that you can convince a majority of people to say, okay, we take the immediate effect in favor to prevent a future effect? Like in Corona crisis, there also has this scenario of there's no glory in prevention. So you prevent something, nothing happens, and then like, okay, why did I sacrifice so much of my personal life for nothing to happen?
No, it's big questions. The only thing is that we know that growth in a finite system will kill us all, humans and non-humans. That is a scientific fact. So for me, the solution, I don't really care. Do something. So I think, for instance, I had a Moroccan baker, very nice guy, Mohammed, and he made a second bakery. Because he was in the logic of growth, and he suddenly said no. The idea that the economy has to grow, I think Jason Hickel convinced me, is a fiction. It is not true. It has not to grow eternally. You can have a good level and just stay steady. It is possible, but it's bad for the shareholders. You see, I mean, that is the thing. We need, in fact, Shell, I mean, the new CEO of Shell said, we will pump oil. Because the value of Shell is the future. I mean, you know more about economy, I hope, than I do, but I know that much, that the value of like Tesla and whatever is the future. So the future of Shell is the oil fields that they have not yet exploited. So as long as we have the logic of growth and that the shareholders are the boss of the world, we are in a bad situation. Yeah, I have to...
To react to your point on climate action, violent action, how is the emergence of that in an increasingly polarized society any different to climate non-believers and the Trumpists who you spoke of at the very beginning? Thank you.
Very good question. You have to hope that you can convince the people that you are saving the planet by, for instance, like Code Rood, maybe not as spectacular as the action now, but Code Rood is a big coalition. They went to Engie and blocked the gas entity that they are making now. I don't think of course, this is not blowing up a pipeline. So, but it is sabotage. You block. You make that an economic activity is halted for a certain period of time. If you extend that period, it is really hurting. So you are destroying wealth. Yeah, but you're not destroying property. Yeah. So I'm not pleading. I know, of course, that this would be a huge discussion. I'm not pleading for it. I'm just saying that we have to, like the civil rights movement. This is an interesting one. The civil rights movement, and of all social movements, it's called the theory of the radical wing. The radical wing makes, like, of course, help me, Malcolm X and Black Panther, they made the Martin Luther King look like somebody to talk to. So it's called the radical wing theory. So you have a radical wing, and suddenly those who seemed radical before, let's go and talk to Martin Luther King, because this Malcolm X is a bad one. You see? So, and it works in many. Extinction Rebellion is a good example. Code Rood, in my opinion, but I'm not like so close, but it would be a question that I would ask to somebody who's really inside the climate movement more than I am, who is around the table when they made this coalition. It's a really big coalition. Everybody's there. Climaxi, Climate Express, Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion. Everything that has Klimaatzaak, everything that has to do from far and near with the climate in Belgium is part of Code Red coalition. And they're radical. Well, my impression is that this is the work of Extinction Rebellion, that people like Greenpeace have said, hey, come on. We have talked with the banks, we have done this, we have done that, we have made hundreds of petitions, thousands of actions. Now we act and we make it feel, we make it concrete. You know? So and then again, Greenpeace was, when they were hanging the spandoeken, the banners on the cooling towers, they were prosecuted for criminal organization. So it depends on what you call destruction of property or endangering public security, so it's. I mean, terrorists are always your enemies. Freedom fighters are your friends. So it's all very. So I think it's if you look at the history of social movement, it's always much more complex than peaceful or violent. It doesn't work this way. It's much more complex if you look closely.
Here is another question.
This relates to Extinction Rebellion. There was a big protest a few months ago in June in London. It was supposed to be probably the biggest massive die-in ever, and probably the biggest reminder to the British government that, you know, we've reached a point of no return, basically.
The big one.
Sorry?
It was called the big one.
It was called the big one. It was in the name. I was there. Very few people were there. Very few organizations that originally were supposed to be there attended. One example was the Woodland Trust. Why wouldn't they attend the protest? Because a big part of their membership is actually conservative membership. So they were afraid that by attending a non-violent big protest that was coordinated by Extinction Rebellion, they would actually run the risk of losing their conservative membership, right? So you make the claim that not enough is being done, I guess, by those organizations. You're also a fan, as many of us here, of Extinction Rebellion. I think it's important to kind of acknowledge that these organizations, they're still very much entwined in the political system of, identity politics that all of the other organizations are entwined with, right? And they're, by the same virtue, asking for those membership bases that consequently provide, political support and visibility. Don't you see that as a conundrum?
Well, I must say I was amazed about this code red. It's a very good question, but it's a very technical question almost. I mean, you have to look for the country. I was amazed when I saw the coalition of Code Red. The coalition in the UK, I know much less. I know it was a coalition. I thought, this is strange. Extinction Rebellion is losing, it's giving up. They said it themselves. For 1 year, we will work together. We will be less radical. Then we make just a big manifestation. Manifestations. How many manifestations have you got? So I thought it was a very strange choice for Extinction Rebellion in UK. But anyhow, but I was amazed that the only coalition I can talk about is the Belgian coalition. And I do think that all these people were convinced that radicalizing with Extinction Rebellion was a good idea. But maybe in the UK, if you have an ecological movement or NGO which has a conservative base, this will not work. I mean, you have to explain that you cannot be pro-capitalist and be ecological. It's just impossible. You have to read Naomi Klein on this, Capitalism versus the Climate. This changes everything. Very good book. Yeah.
Does that work? Yes, it does. I hate being pessimistic, I really do. But I have to play devil's advocate and say that historically, I've never seen a rebellion happening without any imminent threat, like in a year, not in 50. And we are facing, therefore, a biological block. Our brains don't produce enough stress out of crisis that will happen in 50 years. So we can't have a natural biological rebellion. We can't build a whole other society with resources that we do not have, because the people who have resources, a lot of resources, are pretty safe from the imminent threat of climate crisis for the time being.
They are not.
So we can't have a natural rebellion. We can't have a separation of society. We can't have democracy because more than 50% of the population doesn't even believe that this is happening. I think the only solution we are facing is a complete societal reform. And if that is the case, from the limited amount of psychology I know, I think that the only hope we are seeing is our brain trying to avoid the unavoidable. We can't have the social reform that we need. How can we avoid looking into this pessimism, into our brain tricking us into false hope?
Yeah, as I said, maybe I should have shown the film all the same. Pessimism in theory, optimism in practice is my slogan. Yeah, I'm really more pessimistic than you in your wettest dreams. But at the same time, we have to keep this dialectic going to be because to be only pessimist is just saying, okay, I'll be complicit of making it worse, because there's not a neutral position. I think Andreas Malms has convinced me that the position of too late, too little, we're not made for that, and is a position that is so luxurious, but is complicit of the worst. Because of course, Jonathan Franzen is living the life of an American fly-around intellectual. So big footprint. And then saying, it's too late, folks. No. And then you have to detail. For instance, the citizens panels that Macron had made, let's say, as a response to the Gilets jaunes, democracy, real democracy, by 150 just statistically chosen people, that is real democracy, in a sense. And there's no, like in ancient Greece, you just pick people and they do it. All classes, you make sure that the statistics are right. They made 46 proposals that worked, that were really consistent. So the idea that democracy cannot work, that's one of the things of extensionability, make citizens panels. You will see that citizens and experts will go a mile. Why? Because they don't have immediate, the lobbyists are in the lobby where they should be and not deciding. Yeah. So I mean, I think the democracy side, but I agree that there is reason for pessimism. I think my lecture, if you read everything and you read my book, my students say it's a very depressing book. So. Yeah.
You said that humanity is crazy. In a way, some of us are crazy because we are running a system that is destroying everything. So could you have some thoughts about this disturbed relationship we have with our biosphere and how we could maybe heal?
You could say, of course, that humanity is not crazy, capitalism is crazy. That's one.
We are running capitalism. We are all in it.
Well, yes, but the we. I mean, this is very tricky. Many people in India, many people in Africa have a footprint which is documented of peanuts. Yeah. So to say that they are also guilty of capitalism and have a disturbed relationship with nature, while or let's say, if I make it extreme, the tribes in the Amazonian, are they also we? No, they are not we. So because we repeat colonialism by saying we, but we mean we. White, Western, middle class, etc., etc. So the we is a big point in. But I have great sympathy or great appreciation for ecofeminism, and indeed, you can say that very deep in our history, something went wrong in our relationship with the biosphere and with the bios and everything living. For instance, a very impressive analysis that you find in several ecofeminist writings is the mechanistic worldview, that suddenly every animal, Descartes, becomes a machine that can feel no pain because it has no soul. When you read that, you say, yeah, Descartes was not so clever as he looked. But when you read that and you then see a few hundred years later how we put animals in machines, for instance, as a child, I was shocked out of my wits when I discovered one afternoon popping into the neighbor who had a farm, and I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of chickens plugged into a sort of machine-like constellation, we have, since Descartes, started to treat animals like machines. And it goes very deep, and you can wonder, and that is my discussion with the Capitalocene, whether the technological vector, as I call it, in society, and this mechanistic world, for instance, Leonardo da Vinci, calling him a capitalist, not so sure, but he said a bird is a machine which we can imitate in all its movements. So this idea, which of course was very clever, if you think of a bird as a machine, you have the first step to fly. Of course. Last question. So the mechanistic fire, just to sum up, the mechanistic worldview is at the same time the miracle of the technological society, and at the same time it is the primal sin, the erfzonde, the primal sin of our relation with nature.
Yeah, this works out pretty nicely because I kind of wanted to react as a student of the university and also of the sustainability community here in Maastricht, and also to the comments of the big climate action in London, where some of them opted out of joining, even though they organized it themselves. As students that are part of the university who are here to learn and coming here to learn about it and to be able to continue and act in different ways of activism, how do you think that can work together, being a student of a university and depending on their education to be able to act on this climate change, but also having to act on it right now, and the impact of community, because I think that's also really important, just not only activism.
Yeah, on all the scales, you can do so many things on all the scales. Like the question of why not look at the university itself, it's always good. For instance, today, different topic, but similar, I sent a petition that I didn't write, but I helped finishing. The Leuven University is making publicity for summer schools in Israel. We, with I hope 40 professors will sign this and say, hey, sorry. I mean, you cannot make publicity for collaborations with an apartheid system. So that's small scale, that's looking at your own university and trying to do the good thing in your house. You can, as a response to our relationship to nature, you can say, hey, let's see if we can do some urban farming in Maastricht, and that the university and the city help to sponsor the short change, etc. So on all the scales, and then you can, of course, you can join the Extinction Rebellion. You have here many members, but I mean, on all the levels you can act, I think.
No, because we have a sustainability hub here in Maastricht. It's one of the only places in the Netherlands or Belgium that has a space for climate organizations specifically, and we do have a community garden and swap room and all these projects, but it doesn't feel as activist.
But you can do something on every level. So doing nothing is not an option. That's what I've learned from tonight. Thank you very much for this very, very energetic lecture.